What's going on, guys? It's Brandon back here again today, and I apologize for not posting any videos in the last couple days. I know I said I was done with high school. If you've watched recently, you know that I've finished that. However, I did have senior festivities, like the breakfast and just hanging out, and graduation was last night. But now that that's all over, I'm officially done. Should be officially not have anything else to do. So now we should hopefully get into a more consistent video span, and hopefully I have a few ideas for what we can do, and one of these ones was recommended by a viewer of mine who's commented frequently, and we're gonna do my top 10 playoff games, top 10 playoff games since I've been a fan of the Chicago Blackhawks, which has been since I was born, which has been about since I started watching hockey in about 2009, which is the first time they made the playoffs and with their main guys, so it's convenient. So I have a list of games here that I'm going to pick from, and I have all my notes down here, and I'm just looking and seeing which one I want to start with. We're going to start with an honorable mention, then we'll have the 10 up. And just looking at this, I'm going to go with, for my honorable mention, yeah, I'll go with this one. The date was August 1st, 2020. It was Game 1. The team that they played against was Edmonton. The score was 6-4, and the reason why, I'm not even gonna write the reason why. I'm not even gonna bother with that. I'll just tell you why. Basically, it was hilarious. Chicago was the 12th seed going into that. That was the expanded year, the bubble playoffs, where all the Western teams played in Edmonton and Eastern teams played in Toronto. Hawks were playing Edmonton, heavily out favored, heavily just not supposed to win, and they come out, they give up the first goal quite early, and then they score 4. And Edmonton scores another, I think, after that, and then they went up 6-2. And then, Nugent Hopkins and James Neal, I believe, made it 6-4 near the end. But such a fun game to watch, just watching the Hawks trot over Edmonton for most of the game. It was pretty funny. So that's my honorable mention. So I'm going to take that one off the board. Got to make sure I erase this so I don't hit any other notes of mine. I could have probably done this better, but there we go. That'll work. Next on the board, and think about this, there are a lot of games that anything in my top 10 is pretty high on the list. The Hawks have played in a lot of playoff games, and they've won a lot of playoff games since I've been alive. So let me look at this now. All right, I'm going to go with this one. The date was May 23rd, 2010. It was Game 4. It was against San Jose in the Western Conference Final. I'll put round and game. So, round 3 game. This was qualifying round. Game 4. The score was 4-2. The reason why is because the Hawks clinched a playoff berth in the Stanley Cup Final, and they swept San Jose that year. Games 1 and 2 and 3, I really enjoyed. That entire series was awesome. Games 1 and 2, I was in Mexico for a wedding, so I got to watch them there. I remember going with my uncles and grandfather and my dad, and we all went to the bars in Mexico. They allowed me to go in at that point because I was a young lad who just wanted to watch the game. And I remember sitting in that big, dark, black room. There's a huge screen on the wall, and I watched games 1 and 2 there. We were partying there then. Once they won those 2 games, we came back home for Game 3, where I had the family basically come over again, the extended family, and we watched Game 3. And then Game 4, I remember it was just me and my dad, and rest was history. Duncan Keith lost 7 teeth, and they went down 2-0. They fought back. Keith came back, and they won. That's what mattered. They won. So let me take that one off the board. This is actually a lot harder to erase than I expected. Alright. Next on the board. We'll go with this one. We'll go with June 12th, 2013. It was round 4, game 1 against Boston. The score was 4-3 in triple overtime. And I have a much more, thankfully, in my head, because if the Hawks don't win this game, they lose the series. So game one goes. Their Hawks are getting outplayed crazily. They're President's Trophy winners this year. It's their second cup, and they win 4-3 in triple overtime. They're down 2-0. They're down 3-1. They come back, and I remember Andrew Shaw on a double deflection. Roosevelt shot it, went off Boland, and then off Shaw's stick past him. The game went so late. I remember, want to say 8 years old at the time. And I remember staying up watching that to about midnight with my dad. I remember the game ended at like 11:59 on the dot, exactly like that. It was crazy, something like that. And they won game one, and then they lost game two in overtime, and they lost game three. So if they go down 3-0, they probably don't win that series. So this game is much more valuable here than a lot of people give it credit for. Let me take that one off the board. Now, next one on the list, I know exactly which one it's going to be because it's quite similar. Game was played on May 29th, 2010, round 4, game 1 against Philadelphia. So that means it's the first cup. The game ends 6-5, and the reason why, this game was absolutely bonkers. No lead was safe. No one was comfortable with the puck. Everything that was being shot was going in. When the score was 6-5, I remember Hartnell, I think, or it was Leno or Hartnell that got the first one. Then it was who got Brower, and then Boland on shorthanded made it 2-1. Who made it 2-2? I don't remember. Briere made it 3-2 for Philly, and then in the second, Sharp scores to tie it. Blair Betts makes it 4-3. Versteeg 4-4. Hawks, then Brower made it 5-4. Aaron Asher makes it 5-5, and then Thomas Kopetsky, my grandmother's favorite player. I'll never forget that for whatever reason, my grandma loved Kopetsky, and he gets the winner. That was the only goal scored in the third period. It was 5-5 after 2, but Kopetsky, after Michael Layden came out, Michael Layden came out for Brian Boucher, Michael Layden he was fantastic in those playoffs. Then after that, he just disappeared. Like that was like his one climb to fame was that playoffs, and he had like 3 shutouts in the third round. It was crazy. And so yeah, that's why I have that one at number 8. Let me take this one off the board. All right. Next on the list, let me take a look at these. This game was played on May 19th, 2015. It was round 3, game 2, against Anaheim. Score 3-2 in triple overtime. Another game in which, if the Hawks don't win this game, they would be screwed. Game 1, this was the series that the Hawks did not deserve to win. Anaheim outplayed Chicago in every bit of this series except Game 7, and they managed, and Game 6 and 7, and they still managed to blow it. Game 1, Anaheim wins. Pretty flat out straight. Game 2, the longest game in Blackhawk franchise history happens. We're within 4 minutes of a quadruple overtime, 4 minutes left in the third overtime. In the second overtime, Andrew Shaw scored a header, but eventually, everyone was kind of like, so do they win? Is that allowed? Turns out you cannot deliberately headbutt the puck into the net. I learned that night, as Shaw's goal was disallowed. But Marcus Kruger, Seabrook with a fantastic slap pass over to Marcus Kruger, and off gets right past Freddie Anderson. And the Hawks lost Game 1 and Game 3 of that series, so if they go down 3-0, if they lose that game, they probably don't win the 2015 Cup. So very important that a lot of things had to go right for the Hawks to win these cups, I'm saying. But yeah, that was a pretty fun game to watch. I stayed up for that. That game went to about 1 in the morning. I was about 10 years old, so I was a little older, but damn, when you're that young, it's tiring. Let me take that one off the board, because I know exactly which one I'm doing next. I just had to take a small glance. Number 6. It was on April 24th. We have a game in April. That's right. 2010, round 1, game 5 against Nashville. The score is 5-4 in overtime. And the reason behind it is the unfortunate circumstances that led that game to have a 5-4 win in overtime. First period, David Legwand scores early. Nashville's up 1-0. Ladd, Jarmelson, and Kopetsky, I believe. Yes, those three guys make it 3-1 for Chicago. The Hawks then have a power play. Kane makes a horrible play, gives it up to Legwand. Legwand and Ward come the other way. Joel Ward buries it shorthanded, 3-2. And then Martin Nerat, who was once traded 1-for-1 for Philip Forsberg before he was even drafted. Actually, he was drafted by that point. And he scores 2 goals, one on the power play, I believe. Makes it 4-3. Then, with a little over a minute left to go in the game, Marian Hossa takes a 5-minute major penalty for boarding. He wasn't a game misconduct. I personally did not think it was 5 minutes at the time. I thought it was only a 2-minute. My 5-year-old self would still think that, and I still think that now, rewatching the play over and over. And so he gets 5 minutes, and he's in the box. And he recounted saying that was the longest 5 minutes of my career. And so they're down 4-3, minute left to go. They're shorthanded. The whole idea in the building is that the Hawks are going to be down 3-2 and have to must-win Game 6 and Game 7. Game 6 in Nashville, Game 7 back in Chicago. Erat throws the puck to the front of the net looking for an open Jason Ardent. Niemi is pulled for the extra attacker as the Hawks go down the ice. So it's 5-on-5, but the Hawks have an open net. Hawks made some great passes. I want to say Keith took it in, put it back. It was sharp to Seabrook to Taze. Keith was in front of the net. Bounced right to Kane. Joel Ward couldn't stop it enough. Right past Rene with 13.9 seconds left. I remember this so vividly. Or 12.9, 13.9 seconds left, and puts it in. And the Hawks tie the game, make it 4-4, with 4 minutes still left to kill on the 5-minute major. So they go to overtime. They kill the penalty. Hossa comes right out of the box, goes right to the front of net. Bolin takes it around the net, right to Sopel. Sopel shoots it. Rebound goes right to Hossa. He scores. It was incredible. The game should have been over long before that. But I remember me and my dad were jumping for joy when that goal went, and we did not think the Hawks were going to win that game. And when they did it, this was something special. We knew right from there. Now, Game 5 is not going to be one you expect. You would expect the Cup winners to be at the top 3. Not for this one. June 15th, 2015, it was round 4, Game 6 against Tampa Bay. The score was 2-0. And I'm going to be honest, this is the only game from that Tampa series on the board. That Blackhawks Tampa Bay Stanley Cup final might have been the worst Stanley Cup final I ever watched. That was a snooze fest. Every single game was a snooze fest. One game, I think, was 4-3, and that was Game 2, which they lost. Everything else was like 3-2, 2-1, 2-0. Every goal was like they were all separated by 1 goal apart from Game 6, but it was a boring series. Game 1 was good. I remember that because the Hawks came back late. But Game 2, you have to put the Cup winners on there. Duncan Keith gets the winner in the second period, and Kane from Saad and Richards. I remember that one go very vividly. Saad drops it off to Richards, and everyone knew he was going to pass the puck right to Kane. Blast it past Bishop. Hawks win that game 2-0. They win their third Stanley Cup in 6 years. So a very important game to me personally. It's the last cup I ever saw. So moving on. I forgot to erase a couple of these, so let me get some of these off the board so that I don't have to look at them anymore. Alright, so my top 4 here, I can see right here. I think they're going to stay in order that I have here. So it should be pretty easy. Next one be from May 11th. So 5/11, my half birthday in 2009. So 09. The score was the round was round 2, Game 6. The team was Vancouver. The score is the reason why it was that high. What a game. 7-5. This is the earliest Hawks playoff game that I honestly could remember the details about. The Hawks beat Calgary in round 1 and 6. I remember the Havlat overtime goal. Other than that, several kind of fuzzy to me. Then I remember them coming back a lot early in the series but not winning the games. I remember Game 2 they did come back and win. Game 1 they came back but then lost in the last minute. Game 3, they lost. Game 4, Ladd got the OT winner. Game 5, the Hawks stole that one in Vancouver. Ladd got the empty netter there. Game 6, Kane gets a hat trick. Name someone on the lineup, they probably scored. Matt Sundin scored his final goal in that game. I remember that. I had no clue who Sundin was at the time, and I look back now, I'm like, oh my gosh, I witnessed that happen. But yeah, the Hawks win 7-5, and it was just a very fun game to watch. No lead was safe. I remember Vancouver scored first, then Chicago's got the next 3. Vancouver got the next 3 after that to take the 4-3. Burrish tied it at 4-4. I think the Hawks made it 5-4, and then Vancouver tied it. I don't remember. It could be the other way around. Kane gets number 6. Kane, I believe, got 6 and 7. Or no, Kane didn't get 6. Sharp got 6. Kane got 7, and the way it went to the conference final. And I remember that. That was a very fun game to watch. But games with a lot of goals, you'll see, are going to show up more than the games like... That's why I didn't find this series more fun. I'm a big fan of goals. Defense is good. I mean, when the games... Like, the game Game 1 between Carolina and Florida with a quadruple overtime. That's another video I want to do with long overtimes. I want to go over some of the longest games in history. But, that was a fun game because the goalies were standing on their heads back and forth. The only thing more fun than that is just seeing everything go in. And that's why kind of like Vegas-Dallas Game 2 was kind of a snooze fest. But like that one was ended in overtime early, thankfully. But Carolina-Florida, that was a perfect example of a defensive game that goalies were standing on their heads. It was funny. Both teams were throwing everything they had out there, and Florida got the best of it. So let me erase that one. Moving on. May 30th, 5:30. What year? 2015. Round 3, Game 7 against Anaheim. The conference final against Anaheim, Game 7, was such a fun game to watch. I remember because my parents went on a trip to San Francisco, and they got back the morning of Game 7. Because the Game 7 was played, it was an afternoon game. And my dad came home and we watched it, and it was hilarious. Hawks went up 4-0. Or 3-0. I went up 3-0 quite early. I don't remember if they made it if it was 4-1 or 3-1, 3-2, 4-2. But I remember the final score being 5-3. Anaheim probably shouldn't have scored 3, but that was just a laugher. That entire game, it was like, wow, we just stole this series from Anaheim. That's what I genuinely thought at the time at 10 years old. Because that was just that should never have happened. We should not have beat Anaheim. I'm sorry. Anaheim fans, you've been screwed over. The Crosby sweepstakes, the Bedard sweepstakes, the conference finals you've been to in 2015 and 2017 you lost by yourself. Nashville kind of just beat you there. But that's a series you probably should have won and probably would have played Tampa for the Cup. So, moving that, and we probably can guess what 2 are left. So, let's go with June 24th, 2013, Round 4, Game 6 against Boston. The score ends up being 3-2. The reason why? They won their second Stanley Cup. They stole their second Stanley Cup. 17 seconds is the reason they stole their second Stanley Cup. And I was 8 years old, so I was actually able to understand it. 5 years old, I was just a happy-go-lucky. They won, yay! 8 years old, you're kind of you understand what it takes to go through to win. And it's great to be back at the top of the mountain again. And I remember who scored early on. I don't remember if it was Krejci or Horton that scored the first one. I feel like it's one of those two. Taves scored short-handed to make it 1-1. Lucic scored with 7 minutes left to make it 2-1. Then, of course, Hawks pull Crawford, and Bickle gets the goal to tie it up from Taves and Keith. And then Bolin comes down 17 seconds later. Oduya shoots, Rask is down, Bolin's right there. Bams it right in. It was truly incredible. I remember we were in between moves at that time. These are just bringing back some fond memories. You're moving, and we were staying at my grandparents' house, and I remember I was watching on the TV. They tie it up, and we're all like, okay, so now we're going to go to overtime. We might get a repeat of 2010 here. And they come back down the ice, and me and my dad just went absolutely nuts at that one. We're like, oh my gosh, no way. But, yeah, very fond memories right there. Very fond memories. That's what all these unlock. So that's why I'm sorry to all. I've been very blessed with the amount of success my favorite team has had over these years. But I've never been happier than on June 9th, 2010, round 4, game 6 against Philly. Score was 4-3 in overtime, you probably know. The phantom goal no one ever saw. And I remember this game. I remember everything about this game. Me being 5 years old, I remember everything about this game. Wow, that was a day. I remember all day just waiting, because I finished school that year, I believe, on June 6th. And then June 9th, because that was the year I had kindergarten. Or no, I had pre-K 4 that year. Yeah, because kindergarten was next year, because they were celebrating in the next school year, 2010-11. So yeah, 9-10, finished pre-K 4. I can remember that. That's something to begin with. Not a lot of people can remember preschool, and a lot of these giggles here just from remembering fond memories. I keep bringing that up because it's nice to have memories. And I remember Bufflin scores early in game 1, and then I don't remember who scored the first goal for Philly. Probably no, it was Hardnall, because Hardnall just got the front of the net, and Seabrook and Keith were there, and they kind of had a shoving match, but Hardnall gets it in. Again, Briere scores on a fantastic 2-on-1. Danny Briere was one of my favorite players at the time. I loved Danny Briere, and I still do. He led the playoffs in points that year with 30. He was incredible. Just Danny Briere, one of my favorite players. I wish I had like a jersey of him in Buffalo. If I ever get like a black jersey, like the black Buffalo, I'm either getting Briere or I'm either getting Thompson, because those are my two favorite Sabres. And then if I get a white one, I'd probably get Miller or Hasek. Or Miller in black would probably be nice, but Hasek I want in white. That reminds me of the 99 final, and I feel like Hasek deserves it. Hasek, I think, is the best goaltender of all time, if you didn't know. But maybe we'll do a countdown of goalies eventually. Moving on. So what was I going to say? Yeah. So Briere makes it 2-1. And then Sharp 4-on-4 makes it 2-2. Ladd on a deflection makes it 3-2. Jarmelson shoots it. Ladd gets the deflection off his skate. Then with 4 minutes to go, my dad was crushed at this because he didn't think the Hawks were going to win a cup in his lifetime. Because he was born 8 years after 61, so so that would have been already 8 years into the drought. Add another, they had a 49 years, so 49 minus 8 is 41. So he went 41 years, and I was 5 years old. So that's something. And Hardnall gets the goal, like he throws it in front of the net. Leno threw it in front of the net, bounced off Seabrook. Hardnall, Hosa's skate past Niemi. And Hosa, of course, lost in Pittsburgh, went to Detroit, lost in Detroit, went to Chicago, and third times was the charm for him. As Kane gets it from Campbell, does a shoulder shimmy, takes the puck to the weird angle and shot it. And me and my dad were two of the only people in the world that believed we saw the puck go in. I remember pointing, it's there, as like my 5-year-old self. It's there, I could see it, Dad, I see it. And yeah, I remember the biggest high five we ever had. My 5-year-old was knocked back by it, but my dad was so happy, and I was happy for myself at the time. I was happy for the Hawks, but years later, I'm much more happy for my dad. Now, there were a lot of games. I had a lot of favorite games on here. There's some games I wanted to mention. So games 1, 2, 3 against San Jose. I already talked about them. They were fond. Game 5 against Philly. The Hawks win that one 7-4. That was a pretty good game. Those were from 2010. 2011 games 4, 5, and 6 against Vancouver, which they won 7-2, 5-0, 4-3 in overtime, and should have won Game 7, but I won't talk about it. Then 2012, there's nothing. 2013, you have games 6 and 7 against Detroit in that 3-1 comeback. You have Game 5 against LA, Game 4 against Boston. That was a wild game, 6-5 in overtime. That was 2013. 2014, a Game 5 against LA, and Game 5 against St. Louis. A lot of fond memories here. 2015, although they didn't win this game, Game 5 against Anaheim, it was one of the greatest games I ever saw. Hawks Tay scored 2 goals in the last minute to tie that game. It was 4-2. Tay scores 2 goals to tie the game in the last minute, 4-4, and then Bolesky scores 11 seconds into overtime, and I wanted to shoot myself. And then Tampa, of course, Game 1 against Tampa. That was the only other game I have any really recollection of in that series, because that series was a snooze fest. I'm sorry. But yeah, a lot of fond memories on this board. Going for 25 minutes now, so I'm going to stop my rambling. Tell me down below what you think of this list. What are some of your fondest memories as an NHL fan? What games, what years? Tell me down below everything I put up here if you want. You can write an essay about it. I don't care. I'll read it. I'll reply. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I shall see you guys in the next one, hopefully much sooner than last time. Goodbye.